Hey YouTube, Sam Frank here. Today's episode of Hobby Talk Tuesday, I wanted to talk about a subject that has been on my mind here recently, and we are starting to enter the post-pandemic, post-COVID world. And looking back at that March 2020, when COVID and the pandemic really started shutting everything down, our lives have changed so much. It's amazing all the things that got turned upside down at that time. I mean, I personally was able to continue working because my job, thankfully, was classified as an essential worker. So I was still able to go to work, but I know most people, they weren't allowed to go to work. But after work, I would have to just go home because there's nothing open. Everything was closed. You could get gas, but that was about it. Couldn't go to movies. Couldn't, go hang out with friends. Couldn't go to a place of worship. Couldn't go to a grocery store for a little bit. It was a very strange time to live, and I'll never forget those years. Just totally mind blowing what that disease was able to do to our society in general. So, looking back, people being confined to their homes and having nothing to do, um, you know, not even able to go to a restaurant, or eventually we were able to go, pick up some food. But so many businesses didn't survive that. There's many restaurants that still have not recovered from that. It's just crazy. We haven't seen fully the ramifications of these incredible 2 years of confinement, basically, and the emergence of Zoom. I mean, thank goodness there was Zoom, something like that, where people could still, talk to loved ones. I know that probably, like, there's probably a lot of people in. I'm not a very sociable person, even though I have a YouTube channel. I'm actually a very unsociable person in most aspects. So I didn't mind being, confined as much as I know there's a lot of people that are very sociable people, and it was probably been just an unbelievably rough last couple of years. But it seems like we're getting the pandemic in the rear view window, and life is returning to normal. But I was looking back, how did our hobbies, how were these affected during the pandemic, and how will they be affected going forward? So, and in also in respects to YouTube in general, I just happened to be in a lot of hobbies that I really enjoyed. I did them years and years before the pandemic, and these hobbies really exploded, in terms of popularity and demand during COVID, like card collecting, basically any kind of hobby that kept your mind off of being stuck doing nothing flourished during COVID. And then, the stimmies, people would get stimulant checks, and stimulus, not stimulant. You didn't want to get stimulant checks, stimulus checks. So people get stimmies. They were designed to put money back into our economy, and I think that definitely happened. But people had some money to spend on hobbies, because you weren't spending money on anything else really besides food, groceries, a little bit of gas to get around to the grocery store and back, and your utilities and whatever home owning expenses that you may have had. But hobbies were allowed to completely explode during this time, out of sheer people needing something to do. People dug out their baseball card collections, people dug out their Pokemon collections, their Hot Wheels collection, whatever, model building, you name it, those hobbies flourished. And another thing that really flourished, I feel, was YouTube. And even though YouTube paid less money, believe it or not, to their creators through their ad revenues, believe me, it's way less than what it was at one time. The amount of people watching YouTube and streaming things exploded as well. So many great YouTube channels, came up out of nowhere because these great content creators basically never really had time to deal with doing a channel, and we found all these talented people out there that made some amazing content. And you know every single hobby you can think of, there was a billion channels out there, very passionate creators spewing their love of their hobby, and it helped build this boom of hobbies growing up as well, because you could like feed off of that enthusiasm for those hobbies and kept your mind off of the awful world situation that we were going through, at least for a few moments in the day. And man, I'll tell you, I watched a lot of YouTube. I was working, but I mean, there's nothing to do after work except to go home and, be at your own device, be left to your own device. And that time was filled with hobbies. I mean, you couldn't go fill it, go hanging out with friends. That was out. Couldn't go to movies. That was out. Couldn't go to restaurants. My life consisted of waking up, doing my workouts, which I did by myself, going to work, which I was an essential worker. Thankfully, I still was able to go to a place to work, but I worked by myself. I didn't have to be around other people or be at risk of catching COVID, because I worked a lot by myself anyway. And going home as soon as work was over, cook a meal, watch YouTube, or do hobbies. And being on 410's work shift, which was great. I love 410s. You had even more time to devote to those hobbies. And this is the reason that the whole world began to be able to enjoy hobbies more. I mean, I say enjoy, but it's just because there was nothing else to do. But now, and then tying into YouTube, of course, I mentioned all these great channels devoting, content to these hobbies that we love, just fueled everything together. And I really love that Zoom was a thing. You could still kind of keep in contact with friends and family. Basically we had the picture phone, which was something that you only dreamed about when you're a kid. But now you basically kept your sanity through Zoom. And some really great YouTube content creators were able to integrate Zoom into these great live streaming. And thank you to all those live streamers and stuff out there. I personally have never done it because I just don't know how to do it, but I enjoyed a lot of live streaming. You kind of felt like you're hanging out with friends. It was amazing. I'll never forget those great YouTube channels and stuff, because they helped get me through the pandemic. I'm sure they helped millions and billions of people get through the pandemic with a little bit of sanity intact. But now we're emerging out of the COVID era and the pandemic, and what is going to happen to these great channels? A lot of them are going to probably go away, because these content creators now have jobs to go back to, regular life to go back to. There's not as much time to spend on hobbies and such. And we're definitely seeing that in the collectibles world, card collecting. I definitely have been seeing this, where all these cards that got sent in for, that was another thing, was PSA grading cards, other card companies grading cards, the grading frenzy that exploded during the pandemic. Now all these cards are on the market and causing the cards to drop down severely in value, as predicted by many YouTubers and experts, so-called experts. And And now it seems like those booms are definitely in the rear view window. And now, what is going to be like? You can really say the pandemic caused fanatics to gobble up all of the sports card companies to where now they are this behemoth of sport. I mean, just because they were able to see these are huge industries, the sports cards, collectible cards, Panini, Tops, and now they've kind of just pretty much swallowed it all up, and now they're the giant out there. You know, we've seen our beloved hobby boxes explode in price, which sucks. I mean, you've been able to watch, hopefully, you've been able to enjoy this cheap box opening series of Star Wars stuff. This was stuff that I bought many years ago before the pandemic, and those prices just exploded. Now it's just impossible to try to find, cheap hobby boxes of Star Wars. People probably wonder, where in the world am I finding these? They were found years ago, when you could buy, you can buy a hobby box of Bowman Chrome baseball, Bowman Chrome hobby box for $50 back in 2016, 2017. Like I ordered a case of, I used to pre-order cases of cards to open on the channel because hobby boxes were like $50 a box. You could get Star Wars boxes for like $20 some a box. It was crazy times. I loved it because I was able to open all this cheap stuff that was really fun on the channel, and just by luck, the stuff has increased in value. But also in bad luck, I didn't stock up on all that stuff, and now if I want to open that kind of stuff, it costs a fortune. Hobby boxes are ridiculously priced now because the hobby exploded. Now, I definitely see the hobby shrinking back. You've already seen it definitely in basketball. The hobby, the cards have shrunk back. I mean, it's probably more of a market correction. I don't want to call it a crash because it was just like such a huge bubble, which was such an unusual set of circumstances. The market's definitely corrected big time in basketball. Baseball, it's been more steady, but there's definitely some market correction there because the print runs have gone way up, and cards are not as rare as they once were, and we're kind of getting closer to the junk wax print run era. It's not that bad, but it's getting there. I mean, 2022 Topps baseball stuff, guys, is being printed into the ground. Trust me on that. Just like Panini football, basketball, all that kind of stuff is being printed till the presses can't print anymore. Basically, Pokemon cards, TCG games, same thing. Yeah, look at the explosion of just taking one thing, Pokemon. It's been unbelievable, but guess what? It's in a major retraction now as people have regular life to return to and are no longer looking through their binders that they've dug out of the closet, for months and months and months. Now they're getting back to regular life, I got to go to garage sales this year. That just was unbelievable to me. It's been so long since I've just been to a garage sale. Gone to movies, go to a restaurant, hang out with friends. It's been awesome. But I know hobbies are going to suffer because, well, maybe not suffer is the right word, but they're going to return back to pre-pandemic levels. And I hope that doesn't mean that there's going to be a bunch of people that went deep during the pandemic and are going to be left holding the bag. So that's going to be some of the storylines of 2022, the remainder in 2023, as life gets back to normal and these hobbies kind of balloon back down to normal levels again. Look at card grading. Card grading is a great example. PSA is not getting people sending in cards now. They've dropped the price down time and time again now. Now they're down to $30, and you can send one card in for $30 grading fee now, where they were saying, hey, if you can grade them for $30, but you got to send in 20 cards. They weren't getting any cards in. Now you can send one card in for $30 and they'll grade it. I almost guarantee you they're not getting cards in, because I sent in an order. I mean, I'm a dummy. I sent in more cards at $30 to get graded, but I sent that order in and it's already being worked on right now, which that was supposedly not going to happen until after all of the back orders were completely filled up. Not back orders, the backlog. But I sent it in. The next day, it was being worked on at the $30 value level. So that tells me that they do not have much coming in at all. So that means that the price of grading is going to continue to go down, which is awesome. Until it gets to a teetering point when they start getting people sending in cards again. But I think those days are probably done of people sending in tons of cards to get graded, because they're seeing that the cards just aren't worth getting graded. And that's probably a positive thing for the hobby, in that people were able to send, including me, send in just about anything to get graded, and it was worthwhile doing it. Now, you have to be really selective on what you send in. And that's going to be another storyline of 2022, 2023, is the grading market. And hopefully there weren't a lot of people that didn't go too deep on that, where they're going to be hurting trying to offload cards, which is in turn going to cause the hobby markets to go down further, which it's all the law of supply and demand, and we're on the backside of this huge bubble, which there's no other way to describe that. COVID pandemic era is a huge collecting bubble, and we're definitely on the backside of it. And then I mean, thankfully I did send in tons of cards. I sent in a few that I was willing to sell to help pay for orders, but most of them were for my PC, so it's not sinking me, thank goodness. I'm enjoying my cards getting graded. I'm even sending more in, some alt arts and stuff. You'll see those videos in the coming, weeks and months and stuff. Those are cards for me. Don't have interest in selling those. But if I was grading cards to sell, it's getting very tricky right now to do that. I will tell you that. Anyway, this video is getting to be too long, but thank you for watching. Thank you for watching my channel over this pandemic. I know my channel is a microscopic little speck of dust compared to some of these other hobby channels that are so great, and I'm very lo-fi, very cheap, but I definitely have people that watch videos, and I appreciate all of you, and I'm going to keep on making videos because I find it fun. And hey, the pandemic brought forth some new ideas for making videos, like Hobby Talk Tuesday and Card to Card episodes. Those are fun to do, and you don't have to open packs to do those types of videos. So I hope to add more type of content like that, which is, this is part of my hobby, is doing the YouTube channel. I have enjoyment of the hobby, and my YouTube channel is part of that. So thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more videos. Later.